We have to be clear about something from the jump. We are no longer talking about shoes.
No, not really. Not in the way people think about them.
We're talking about something that functions. Well, it functions purely as a stock. Something that should go on your foot, but has mutated into a financial asset.
And the market size for that asset is it's genuinely staggering.
It really is.
It's like the scarcity algorithm made physical,
Yeah.
but it's been weaponized. The official narrative you always hear.
Oh, yeah, the one in all the glossy magazines.
Exactly. It's always, oh, it's just organic enthusiasm. The culture's strong. People love collecting.
Right. It just happened.
But that narrative is so deliberately thin. I mean, when you really look at the economics, you realize this enthusiasm is anything but organic. It's quantified, it's calculated, and it is leveraged.
Absolutely. We're talking about a resale market that's estimated at, what, $2 billion right now?
Mm-hmm. At least.
And that number isn't static. It's not sitting still.
Yeah.
It's on a trajectory to double to $4 billion by 2025. And a growth curve like that isn't fueled by people who just, appreciate the quality of the leather or the craftsmanship of the laces.
No way. It's fueled by speculative demand, purely, and by a very intentional architectural framework that was built from the ground up by the major brands.
And that right there, that's the central tension of this whole deep dive, isn't it?
It is.
On one side, you have the passion, the community, the cultural phenomenon.
And on the other, you have this unseen narrative. A carefully constructed system designed by corporations like Nike and Jordan Brand, where scarcity isn't some happy accident.
It's not a byproduct of success.
No, it's engineered. It's the primary strategic tool.
And the goal of that engineering, it's so much deeper than people think. It's not just about marketing, is it?
No, it's about offloading risk. That's the core of the machine.
They've built a system where the entire responsibility for maintaining profit, for maintaining the hype, is pushed onto the secondary market.
Which means, when you look at it structurally, the reseller community, the kid with the sneaker bot, the person lining up for days, they're not some rogue element just skimming profits off the top.
No, they're part of the system.
They are essentially an outsourced hype department for the brand.
That is such a brutal, honestly, an elegant way to put it. Let's really break that down because it's a profound observation.
Okay.
Think about what that means for a company like Nike. They maintain a relatively low initial retail price, say $180 for a really sought-after retro sneaker.
Right, a price that feels accessible.
But they know with absolute certainty that shoe is going to immediately sell for $500, maybe $1,000 on the secondary market.
So the question is, why don't they just raise their own price of $500 and capture all of that profit themselves?
Exactly. Why leave all that money on the table?
Because if they did that, they'd be sacrificing something far more valuable.
Their primary market share.
Their primary market share and their image of mass market affordability. Suddenly, they'd have to spend dramatically more on traditional advertising to sustain that brand heat.
Instead, they keep the retail price low. They let the reseller assume all the risk.
The reseller does the heavy lifting of price discovery, of brand amplification, so all that frantic reseller activity becomes this highly effective and almost entirely free marketing strategy for Nike.
It's risk mitigation as theater. And the whole game, the entire system, it starts with the original sin of manufactured desire. You have to look back at the Air Jordan 1 in 1985.
The creation myth.
Right. Nike was being fined by the NBA because the shoe was supposedly banned for its colors. And what did they do?
They leaned into it. They built a whole campaign around it.
They leveraged that controversy, that sense of forbidden scarcity.
Yeah.
And the result, they sold $126 million worth of that shoe in the first year.
That was it. That was the defining moment. The first time a brand really culturally appropriated the authority of a governing body for pure marketing gain.
It was the moment the brand learned the incredible power of saying no, the power of exclusion.
And they realized that if you don't limit the quantity, if you actually satisfy all the demand, you immediately destroy the cultural value of the object.
Unrequited demand is absolutely imperative to keeping a product afloat. The second a shoe achieves ubiquity, its cultural buoyancy is gone. The moment is over. The whole system just deflates.
Which is why the core mechanism is making sure you feel that pressure, that genuine visceral fear of missing out the FOMO, because that impulse is what drives the entire speculative price engine. So if the Air Jordan 1 was that, initial architectural flashbang that started it all, then the Jordan brand legacy became the ongoing, repeatable blueprint, the manual for how to sustain profit through scarcity.
And the big question they had to solve was, How do you maintain that scarcity, that hyper-demand, for 40 years without constantly having to innovate brand new designs that might fail?
And the answer was, you don't. You mine the past.
You standardize nostalgia. You turn it into a core financial lever.
They literally codified the concept of the retrospective release, the retro. Take the 2006 Defining Moments pack.
A perfect example.
This wasn't just a basic re-release of 2 old shoes, it was a highly curated package, a narrative in a box.
Right. It included the exact sneakers Michael Jordan wore during the first championship of his 2 three-peats.
And it came with metallic dog tags referencing the titles he won, concept art. They weren't selling shoes, they were selling an artifact of American sporting history.
They're selling mythology packaged in vulcanized rubber. But what's really interesting is that they're also masters of, I guess, revisionist history. They aren't afraid to Frankenstein that mythology together.
What do you mean by that?
Well, look at the 6-ring shoe they released in 2008. That shoe literally combines signature design elements from the 7 different Air Jordan models that Michael Jordan wore during his 6 championship seasons.
Ah, right. It's a highlight reel.
It's a bundled product. It's designed entirely to capitalize on that sustained multi-generational demand. It lets a younger customer who maybe can't afford 6 different original pairs.
Buy the historical greatest hits in one single product.
Right.
From a business standpoint, it's economically sound.
And we keep coming back to the subtlety of that economic genius, the risk mitigation theater we were just talking about.
Yeah.
It's also how they conduct their market research. For free.
Okay, break that down.
They use the resale platforms, StockX, GAT, to see exactly how high they could have priced the shoe before people finally stopped buying.
So the secondary market is basically their focus group.
Exactly. They're essentially paying the secondary market through lost potential profit to gather their true demand elasticity data for them. It's brilliant.
And all that data confirms the system is really designed for quick trading, for flipping, not necessarily for long-term collecting.
How so?
Well, statistical analysis of the resale market shows that prices tend to follow a negative trend pretty shortly after the initial release.
So the bubble pops fast.
It does. The initial price drops are expected. So if you're a long-term collector, it's an unsustainable bubble. But if you're the brand, it's a highly profitable mechanism because it maintains that illusion, that allure of the high resale price for the next drop.
It keeps the machine running.
And that entire profitable marketing strategy depends heavily on the collusion of celebrity and commerce.
It's not enough to have a great product with a great story. You need a cultural intermediary.
A face.
A visible, desirable person to confer that status and signal onto the object.
Any collaboration, whether it's a design, an ad, a sponsorship, or even just someone being photographed wearing the product, if it's by a known individual, it positively impacts the cultural value and the popularity.
Which is why the brands are willing to pay these individuals just astronomical sums of money.
The numbers are necessary for context here, I think.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, look at Travis Scott. He earned something like $10 million per year from his Jordan brand partnership alone.
10 million.
He is not just an endorser. He is a mandated, highly compensated part of that outsourced hype department we talked about. He is literally being paid to transfer his cultural cachet directly onto the product.
And it's a smart investment for the brand because they are diversifying their cultural footprint far beyond their origins in basketball.
That's a huge point. It proves the shoe is now a pure status symbol,
Yeah.
totally disconnected from its original function.
Right. We're seeing this massive expansion across the NFL. Dak Prescott, Jalen Hurts, you have Aaron Judge in baseball. And then there's the huge cultural integration with Paris Saint-Germain in European soccer.
And what's so fascinating to me is how the performance requirement of the shoe is now purely secondary to the status requirement, even in high-performance professional sports.
You brought up the case of Jalen Hurts, the quarterback for the Eagles.
Yeah. In basketball, we often see players swap shoes at halftime. They'll say the first pair had no buckets in them or something.
Yeah, sure. It's a superstition, a mental thing.
But that's pretty rare in the NFL. Cleats are a serious piece of equipment. Yet Hurts has been noted for rotating through different pairs of his Jordan cleats, sometimes even changing the mid-game at halftime.
So you have to ask, from a systems perspective, is that a functional athletic choice? Or is that a status presentation?
Exactly. He is broadcasting wealth, access, and desirability to an audience of millions. The second he steps onto that field, His choice of footwear performs as a fashion statement first and a functional cleat second.
It's the constant performance of access.
And speaking of access, or the lack thereof, the digital arms race is the dark engine, making sure that initial scarcity is always maintained. The bot problem isn't a minor inconvenience.
No, it's a deeply structural, almost tolerated threat to the average consumer.
These sneaker bots, or scalper bots, they're highly sophisticated pieces of software that can run through the checkout process and purchase limited stock in just seconds.
They're rampant. They snatch up all the inventory and leave the actual loyal customers completely frustrated and empty-handed.
So here's the architectural question.
Right.
Why do the brands seem to tolerate it, or at least fail to stamp it out entirely?
Because the prestige and the extreme scarcity of these sneakers make them the perfect vehicle for reselling.
And the bot market ensures that scarcity is always met with instantaneous demand.
Which drives the resale price up immediately. Without the bots, that initial hype might not spike as high. That perception of instantaneous cultural value might be a little bit lessened.
It's a really cruel feedback loop when you think about it. The bots make the original retailer look incredibly desirable. The site crashes, the shoe sells out in 6 seconds flat. But at the same time, they are actively frustrating and alienating their most loyal individual customers. The system is designed to choose the speculative profit over the long-term customer relationship.
Okay, so let's talk about the psychological shift here. Because the moment the shoe stops being a piece of gear and starts being a stock, the emotional levers have to change entirely. Sneakers started as athletic equipment, then they became street culture. But now they are the gateway drug to global luxury consumption.
That's a great way to put it. The traditional definition of luxury, high price tied to exquisite, enduring craftsmanship, it's functionally dissolving.
It is. Consumers now perceive luxury as something that encompasses knowledge, belonging, and self-identification.
So the brands themselves have become cultural intermediaries.
Exactly. They're not just selling a product anymore. They're providing a guideline for lifestyle choices that enhance the consumer's perceived identity.
So if you can't afford a Louis Vuitton suit or a Dior dress,
you can probably afford a pair of their collaborative sneakers, which, by the way, carries about 80% of the brand cachet at maybe 10% of the price point.
The collaboration engine is the key to all of it. It drives these old-world designer brands to feel fashionable and desirable, especially among younger populations.
The kids who value experience and self-indulgence over the old luxury that was defined purely by, heritage and quiet wealth.
The unconventional pairings are the ones that become these huge cultural spectacles, the ones that break the internet.
You mean like the Louis Vuitton collaboration with Nike?
Exactly. Or the Dior X Air Jordan 1. These things shake the entire fashion industry because they're bridging these cultural gaps that used to seem unbridgeable, from a skate park to a Parisian atelier.
The Dior X Air Jordan 1 really is the ultimate monument to this new architecture.
For sure.
It was priced astronomically for a sneaker. What was it, like $2,200?
Something like that, yeah. And there were reports that up to 1 million people tried to register for the online raffle to buy a pair.
And that combination, the super high price plus the extreme scarcity, that wasn't just a marketing trick. That was the entire feature of the product.
It totally redefined what prestige meant for a sneaker. It set a new floor for what a high-low collaboration could achieve culturally and financially.
And this feeds directly into what you called the gateway theory.
Right. As one consumer put it, luxury is sneaking through the middle class by way of sneakers.
You buy the $1,000 sneaker first. And that awareness of the high-end brand, that little taste, it sparks an interest in other luxury items that were previously totally inaccessible or just not even on your radar.
It's an emotional entry point. It's the same reason we're seeing this happen in adjacent markets like luxury watches.
With the Omega and Swatch collaborations?
Exactly. They are introducing the hardcore sneakerhead, the person who understands scarcity drops and hype cycles, directly into the world of watch collecting.
The emotional architecture of collecting is identical, even if the object itself changes.
At the end of the day, you're paying a participation fee for a coveted cultural moment. And so much of that participation is rooted in nostalgia.
Oh, massively. Brands use retro branding, the constant re-release of iconic silhouettes like the Air Jordan 1, to generate a sentimental feeling that automatically increases the perceived value.
It's genius marketing because it's so efficient. It saves the brand the time, the money, and the risk of developing entirely new campaigns and new products that might not hit.
They're just exploiting what we already emotionally value.
But that retro narrative, it has to be flexible. It can't just be a dusty museum piece that you can't touch.
Mm-hmm.
Which brings up the fascinating case of the Flint 13s.
Okay, tell me about that one.
So this shoe was released while Michael Jordan was still playing for the Bulls, but it was a colorway he never actually wore in an NBA game. But the blue palette it resonated powerfully with people.
So that absence of a direct championship link, the fact that Jordan himself never cemented its legacy on the court.
Exactly. That allowed it to become the unofficial collegiate choice for teams like Duke and Kansas,
Yeah.
the NCAA Blue Bloods.
So the lack of a definitive story allowed the next generation of players to write their own story with the shoe.
While still standing on the foundational heritage of the Jordan brand. It's the perfect blend of legacy and new identity. That's how you keep an archival silhouette eternally fresh. You leave just enough narrative space for the next generation to claim ownership.
But if we're really tracing the architecture of these brands, we have to connect this beautiful, elegant narrative structure back to its messy, complicated origins. There is a fundamental contradiction at the core of their entire intellectual property strategy, the thing you called the original bootleg theory.
This is where the whole system eats itself. The origin story of Nike is famously one of appropriation.
Right.
Allegedly, Bill Bowerman and Phil Knight's company, Blue Ribbon Sports, essentially just copied an ASICS design. They used the same manufacturer that made soles for ASICS to brand it as their own.
And then there's the romantic story they tell about Bowerman using his wife's waffle iron to invent the first prototype soles. The garage inventor myth.
The contrast is jarring, isn't it? You have this foundational myth of the enterprising American tinkerer, which is immediately followed by a history rooted in what you could generously call homage.
And then you fast forward 60 years, and that same company is now one of the world's most aggressive and litigious enforcers of intellectual property.
The legal framework they've built is just massive. They are fighting these high-profile, incredibly expensive cases over trademark, copyright, and patent issues.
They're hiring specialized IP law firms, like Debevoise, which is known not just for minor infringement disputes. These are the guys who handle complex, multi-jurisdictional trademark battles over huge global assets, like the Stolichnaya vodka brand.
And the scale of that response is what we need to focus on. They are not just sending cease and desist letters to some kid making knockoffs in his basement. They are treating these shoes with the same legal seriousness as if they were fighting for the rights to a globally recognized liquor brand or a massive software patent.
Which just shows you the financial stakes of their IP.
But it also creates this inherent hypocrisy, right? How can a brand so aggressively litigate counterfeiting when its own origin story is, at its core, rooted in bootlegging?
And culturally, we accept it. The Bapesta by Abby the Ape is widely recognized as a direct copy of the Air Force One. They just swapped out the Nike swoosh for a star.
And it's celebrated. It's considered a classic silhouette in its own right.
So the boundary between IP violation and cultural evolution is constantly shifting, depending entirely on who has the market power to define what's homage and what's a knockoff.
So when you create a product that is purely a speculative asset, with resale prices that can reach tens of thousands of dollars for the rarest models.
You inevitably create the perfect high-stakes environment for counterfeits.
Exactly. And the unseen threat right now isn't the really obvious bad knockoffs you see at a street market. It's the super fakes.
And the line between real and fake is getting terrifyingly thin in 2025.
It's super thin.
I mean, factories overseas are perfecting every single detail. We're talking about the exact stitching patterns, the box labels, the paper wrapping inside, even the smell of the new materials and the specific glues they use.
And that level of sophistication means that the basic promise of the luxury object, its scarcity, its exclusivity, is completely undermined.
And it creates a whole secondary ecosystem that is supposed to provide trust, but is constantly struggling to actually maintain it.
Right. I mean, when StockX launched back in 2016, it was a genius concept.
It really was.
They promised the sneaker culture two things it desperately needed: verifiable trust and an authenticity guarantee, paired with live, transparent market data.
It was framed as the stock market for shoes. No scams, no fakes, just pure market efficiency.
But the data we're seeing suggests that system is failing. It's cracking under the pressure of the superfakes and, maybe more critically, its own centralized architecture.
We looked at an analysis of StockX reviews, and the failure points are, well, they're staggering.
What are the top categories?
They're incredibly revealing about the systemic crisis.
Hmm?
Almost 30%, 29.6% were attributed to bad customer service, 20% were for receiving a fake product, and another 15.7% were for delivery issues or hidden fees.
Okay, wait, let's just pause on that number. 20% of customer complaints are about receiving a fake. 1/5 of the time they fail a customer. They are failing on the fundamental promise of their entire existence.
That's right.
The whole reason these platforms exist is to guarantee authenticity. When you have 1/5 of your failures rooted in sending out verified counterfeits, you are no longer a platform of trust. You are a compromised system.
And it's not just them. GOT, the other major platform, also struggles. 18% of its total reviews were 1-star. The documented failures of these centralized platforms show that trust, the very commodity they promise to sell us, is eroding.
Because they just cannot keep up with the technical sophistication of the superfakes being produced at scale.
And that institutional failure forces the original brands deeper and deeper into that perpetual, expensive legal war. They're constantly fighting trademark infringement and cyber squatting just to maintain their exclusive claim over a product that culturally defines them.
It's an unwinnable battle, isn't it? They're using 20th century legal tools to fight a 21st century global production and distribution network.
So, if centralized trust is collapsing and legal recourse is expensive and endless, what's the next architectural solution being proposed?
It has to be a complete systems redesign, a pivot to a decentralized future.
And this is where we shift into the next iteration of the market. The big idea is to use non-fungible tokens, NFTs, to track immutable ownership.
To serve as a digital certificate of authenticity.
Exactly. When a pair of sneakers is verified as genuine by some trusted external party, an NFT is generated for it. This digital token contains immutable attributes that track its ownership history every time it's sold.
So if the token doesn't exist, or the history looks wrong, the shoe is likely fake. It's a direct, systemic attempt to address the counterfeiting issue at scale by moving the source of truth off the physical object and onto the blockchain.
But the idea is being applied not just to authenticity, but to the market architecture itself. There are these proposals for decentralized game theoretic marketplaces.
Okay, that's some high-level jargon. You need to break that down simply for people.
Game theory here just means that the system is designed to provide economic incentives for users to behave honestly.
So it's an architecture that says, we can't force you to be honest.
But we can make the economic consequence of lying so painful that you will choose honesty every single time.
So how would that work in practice? In these transparent, autonomous blockchain trading systems managed by smart contracts?
Well, you might have to put up a financial stake, like a deposit, when you list an item for sale.
Okay.
And if you try to sell a fake and the system verifies the fraud, that smart contract can automatically seize the deposit you staked. And that penalty would be larger than the profit you might have made from the scam.
So you're financially penalized for fraud, transparently and autonomously, without waiting for some customer service agent or a slow legal process.
It's a direct response to all the documented failures of the centralized platforms. The hidden fees, the poor service, the delivery delays. It's trying to force honesty through automated economic consequence.
It removes the human element of potential fraud and the sluggishness of traditional customer service. It's an engineered solution to a human problem.
And speaking of, performance art and market systems, we have to talk about MSCHF.
Oh, absolutely.
They aren't a traditional sneaker brand at all. They are masters of manufactured virality, and their big red boots were a masterclass in planned cultural obsolescence.
My first thought when I saw those things was, this is the perfect metaphor for late-stage consumerism.
Right.
These boots, they're inspired by the cartoon character Astro Boy, and they look like a giant piece from a Sorry board game.
Mm-hmm.
And they sold out in minutes at $350. They were everywhere. Lil Wayne, Diplo, they were dominating New York Fashion Week.
It's pure performance art about consumer culture itself. They create products that are intentionally uncanny and fun, disposable and calculated.
The physical product itself is almost irrelevant.
It is. It's the commentary on the act of purchasing that matters.
It's just cold, calculated marketing designed for maximum virality. You noted that the predicted outcome was immediate value decay.
Oh, yeah. Commenters online were speculating that the boots would be selling for under retail or at retail in the aftermarket within 2 months.
Why?
Because the hype was designed to wear off rapidly, the utility was literally zero. They weren't meant to be worn.
And they achieved that goal through physical failure.
Exactly. Videos started emerging of people struggling violently to take the boots off. Sometimes they had to literally cut the backs of them just to get their feet out.
And that physical inconvenience, that failure as a shoe, just reinforces the entire thesis. You are paying for the momentary dopamine rush of the purchase.
And the fleeting status of being one of the first people to own the thing that is viral right now.
You are not buying a durable good. You're not buying a lasting asset. You are buying participation in a cultural joke that completely evaporates in 60 days.
It was the physical equivalent of a meme stock or an NFT. It was a $350 fee to get in on the meme.
And this whole architecture of manufactured scarcity and rapid value decay becomes particularly cruel when we look at the system's inherent exclusion. The entire foundation of sneaker culture, and especially its financialization, is male-dominated. And women are still, so often, treated as a cultural side note.
The sources really confirm this ongoing systemic exclusion, and it's built right into the design and the distribution of the products.
Yeah. The dedicated female collections so often just resort to these stereotypically designed shoes. They focus on rose gold, pink, or these patronizing pastel colorways.
It reinforces the idea that women's style is somehow frivolous or less serious, an afterthought.
And worse than that, there's a serious lack of size inclusion, particularly for women with smaller UK sizes.
This is active gatekeeping. It's not an accident.
No. They're telling a huge segment of the potential collecting and investing population, you can participate, but only if we design it for you in our colors, and only if your feet are large enough to fit into the leftovers of our main production line.
From a purely architectural standpoint, this is a fatal flaw in their growth strategy.
Absolutely. By consistently designing women's shoes as a less serious, less performance-focused novelty, and by excluding major consumer segments through size limitations, the industry is actively preventing itself from maintaining pivotal growth.
They are choosing to prioritize the male-dominated scarcity model over expanding the total size of the market.
It's cultural gatekeeping masquerading as a marketing strategy. If they actually viewed women as equals, as avid collectors and sophisticated investors, rather than just a colorful afterthought, the market potential would be exponentially larger.
And the growth trajectory could be sustained far more effectively. The system is flawed not just ethically, but mathematically.
It just ensures that even in a moment of supposed democratization through fashion, the fundamental power structure of who gets to decide what is hype and what is valuable remains firmly entrenched. You can have the money, but you still need the pre-approved access and the right aesthetic to participate fully. So we've traced the evolution of the sneaker, from a piece of specialized athletic gear to a hyper-speculative financial asset.
And it's a process that was intentionally engineered by the major players, and it's managed by this revolving door of celebrity collaborations and secondary market operations.
The subtext of this entire market is just so clear now. The major brands have successfully outsourced all of their risk and most of their marketing costs directly to the consumer.
We buy into the narrative, we chase the limited drop, and then we assume the cost of the depreciating asset. We're the ones paying the fee for the thrill of the chase.
And that leads us to the synthesis of all this, the final lingering thought that really should redefine how you look at every hot sneaker drop for the rest of this year. We know the statistical trend line for most of these hype sneakers confirms that their resale value typically drops, and drops rapidly, after the initial frenzy.
Especially for products that were designed purely for virality, like those MSCHF boots.
So if the very object of your desire is designed, from its inception, to lose its value quickly.
And if the manufacturers are more focused on selling you a collaboration as an ephemeral cultural experience rather than a durable product, what are you really buying?
Are you acquiring a genuine, lasting asset that has future equity, or are you simply paying an exceptionally high fee to participate in an engineered, fleeting cultural moment that, by its very design, will evaporate in a matter of months?
You're buying a memory that comes with a depreciating price tag.
This episode is powered by Neon Core Media for stories they said were too real to tell.